Ensign Pulver had always suspected fate disliked him. Not in the theatrical, curse-laden way the Galactic Dramatists Guild wrote about, nor in the tragic, prophecy-doomed way his ancestors sometimes bragged about surviving. No, Pulver suffered from the quiet, persistent kind of misfortune that clung to him like an unpaid parking ticket. If there was a low-priority assignment no one wanted, Pulver got it. If a maintenance hatch needed crawling through, or if a pipe full of lubricating ooze needed a wrench, Pulver's name inevitably appeared on the duty roster. So when Snippik stood before the crew of the Atlas, calling for volunteers for a glory mission, Pulver should have known better than to raise his hand. Snippik had selected an area on a planet called Earth, specifically a coastal strip named Coney Island, which, according to the scouts, showed high fluctuations of human emotional energy, but no sophisticated weaponry. Pulver doubted Snippik had read any further in the mission brief. The planet had been marked generally harmless in the Guide to the Galaxy, and Snippik treated that like gospel truth. Still, if bad luck was going to hound him anyway, why not live a little? Pulver raised his third appendage. "I'll go." "Excellent," Snippik said briskly, handing him a clipboard. "Take notes on the locals while we go rob a bank." Pulver blinked. "Rob a bank, sir?" "Yes," Snippik replied, as if this were perfectly self-explanatory. "It appears to be how they acquire something called money. I saw it on their broadcasts. Once we have money, we can buy local goods and blend in. You scout around and figure out what's worth buying and how we're supposed to behave." With that, Snippik herded the volunteers aboard the shuttle while activating his holosuit to make himself appear human. Pulver stared down at the clipboard for a long moment. Then, resigned, he activated his own holosuit and trudged onto the shuttle. The launch was rough, the pilot ignoring Snippik's angry shouting as the cloaking field shimmered over the vessel. Real gravity overpowered the artificial gravity as they descended, making Pulver's stomach twist. After a few minutes, the rear hatch opened, and the pilot barked, "Everyone out! You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Pick up in 8 arms." And so the crew disembarked, splitting into groups and vanishing into the crowds of Earth. Pulver found himself alone, disguised as a human, armed with a translator that glitched if exposed to bad jokes, and holding a datapad full of field questions. He took one step forward and immediately smelled everything. Frying oil, salt, sugar, thick smoky meat cooked over open flame, warm spices, cold metal, human sweat. The humans themselves moved like a school of colourful, hungry space eels, darting, shouting, laughing, tugging strange objects along the boardwalk. Pulver adjusted his translator. Language mode, human, English. No, that's squealing whales. English, variant, New York. The translator beeped irritably. A human staggered toward him, clearly intoxicated, and squinted. "Dude, I must be wasted. I swear you just popped out of thin air." "Oh no," Pulver said, far too quickly. "I came from a space. Yes, I popped out of thin air. A normal human behavior." He nodded with great seriousness. "Now I must do other human tasks." He hurried away, ducking behind a small food cart to observe without being approached, and froze. A human child stood behind the cart, staring at him over a melting ice cream cone. She blinked with the unimpressed confidence of a tiny apex predator deciding whether to bite. "Mum!" she yelled. "There's a wiggly blue guy back here." Pulver's heart stopped. He looked down. His holosuit had failed. Low battery. He scrambled backward, slipped on a spilled swirl of something bright pink labelled cotton candy, and tumbled out from behind the cart directly into the open walkway, right in front of roughly 40 humans. Every head turned. Desperate, Pulver attempted the traditional diplomatic gesture of his people. He tucked 2 arms behind his back, extended his third, and made the universal plea of, "Please don't dissect me." A human holding a hot dog pointed. "Yo, is this dude part of the show?" Another shouted, "Nice costume, bro." A woman lifted her phone. "Do the thing again." Pulver had no idea what the thing was, His translator offered 17 contradictory interpretations, none helpful. He needed a cover story. His brain catastrophically improvised. "I am not," he began slowly, "an alien." This was, he realized too late, a terrible opening. "I am, instead, a traveling drink mixer." The humans stared. Then a cheer went up. "A bartender!" someone yelled. "Oh, hell yeah!" another shouted. "We need one of those." Before Pulver could protest, two humans grabbed him under the arms and marched him directly toward a battered wooden shack with flickering neon signage. The Surf Shack Bar. Cash only. No fights before sunset. Inside, it was dimmer, cooler, and far more mysterious. Shelves of colorful bottles glowed like a toxic rainbow. Pulver wondered if they were poisons. Humans seemed to enjoy drinking poison recreationally. Behind the counter stood a bearded man with the weary look of someone who had lost the capacity to be surprised. "You the new mixer?" he said. "Linda said you were cosmic or whatever." Pulver opened his mouth and produced absolutely nothing useful. "I am Pulver." "Nice. I'm Boss," the man replied dryly. "Bit of a nut, I can already tell, but we've had weirder. You know how to shake, or are you one of those flair bartenders who break everything trying to show off?" Pulver didn't know what flair meant, but he knew how to move fluid-filled containers. "Yes," he said confidently, "I can shake." "Then show me." A metal shaker was shoved into his hands. Pulver stared at it. Humans leaned in expectantly. Think, adapt, survive. He did what his species did when frightened. He used all three arms. Pulver shook the cylinder with frantic, spectacular precision. Arms blurring, limbs looping behind his back, the shaker spinning around his wrist in a movement he absolutely did not intend, but executed with accidental flair. Silence. Then the bar erupted. "Jimmy, you see that?" someone shouted. "He's like an octopus with snark." "That was rad." Pulver stared. He'd survived a first contact situation. He'd been accepted. He was a bartender. Or possibly someday the bartender, he thought proudly. But baby steps, Pulver. Baby steps. Boss clapped him on the back hard enough to realign his spine. "You're hired. Shift starts now. Don't spill the tequila. Don't serve minors. And if someone named Crazy Tony walks in, don't let him anywhere near the blowtorch." "I understand," Pulver said. And so he worked. He poured liquids. He shook containers. He learned on the rocks meant with frozen water cubes, and that humans paid extra for drinks set on fire. He discovered that shaking drinks with two arms while waving the third earned him tips, a form of currency that sometimes came as green paper and sometimes as enthusiastic high fives. Humans approached him with startling openness, confessing heartbreaks, work problems, petty grievances, and bizarre secrets. Pulver mixed ethanol concoctions and offered nods of sympathy. He slowly realized something profound. Humans treated bartenders like tribal shamans. Approach the bartender, speak your woes, drink the potion, feel better. Even stranger, bartenders seemed highly valued as mates. Human females kept touching him, or more accurately, testing whether his bioluminescent freckles were real. Several insisted he was adorable. Two women, Lindsay and Tara, claimed him as their bartender, hovering on either side of him throughout the night and providing aggressive, contradictory life advice. "Don't trust men who wear sunglasses indoors," Tara said. "Or anyone who calls themselves an influencer," Lindsay added. "Or anyone who asks if your tentacles are posable," Tara warned. "Don't tell him that," Lindsay countered. "I want him to pose those things in me." "Stop being weird," Tara snapped. "Whatever you say, Miss Furry Handcuffs," Lindsay shot back. Pulver wrote all of this down in his datapad for future anthropological analysis, including the questions he didn't dare ask about furry handcuffs. Hours passed, the bar filled with singing, drink clinking, and several people loudly discussing those cosplayers who just robbed a bank. Pulver worked faster than he had ever moved in his life. At one point, a man leaned across the counter, cheeks flushed. "You're a good listener, my dude," he said. "A real one. You got that vibe." Pulver had no idea what a vibe was, though he remembered Tara mentioning she had an entire drawer of them. He nodded politely anyway. "My girlfriend left me for a magician last week," the man said mournfully. "A magician? What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Dude doesn't even do real magic. It's just cards." Pulver considered this carefully. "Your mate," he said, "appears to have poor taste." The man stared, then burst out laughing. "Yo, guys, Pulver says Vanessa's got bad taste." Several patrons cheered. By midnight, Pulver realized something shocking. He was comfortable here. He liked the chaos. He liked the noise. He liked the emotional honesty humans threw around like sparks. He liked the ritualistic art of drink mixing. Even the food wasn't poisonous, so long as he avoided something humans called avocado. The water was drinkable, if disappointingly unsalty, and he knew where his towel was. Stepping outside for air, he munched thoughtfully on a buffalo wing, bones and all. An interesting but survivable turn of events, he mused. When the recovery squad arrived 3 days later, armored and tense, they found Pulver behind the bar wearing an apron that read, "Kiss the cook, but don't touch the tentacles." The squad leader pointed sharply. "Ensign Pulver, by order of command, you are to return to the vessel immediate." He was cut off as Lindsay and Tara stepped between Pulver and the squad. "You're not taking our bartender," Lindsay snapped. "He makes the only drink here that doesn't taste like lighter fluid," Tara added. Drunks hurled bottles at the soldiers. A child kicked one of them in the shin. A war beast, lounging nearby and receiving head scratches from toddlers, stood up in quiet, terrifying solidarity. The squad looked at the humans, at the war beast, at Pulver mixing drinks as the two women groped him protectively. They retreated. As they marched back to the shuttle, the war beast followed, licking an officer's helmet in a final display of dominance. Pulver watched the shuttle vanish. Then he turned back toward the bar. "Pulver!" someone shouted. "2 mojitos and one of those fancy spinning things." "Yes," he said brightly, lifting his shaker. His freckles glowed. Ensign Pulver, once the most forgettable member of the ATLAS, the timid scout officer, the accidental infiltrator, had somehow become the most beloved bartender on Coney Island. And for the first time in his life, he understood something important. Sometimes misfortune wasn't misfortune at all. Sometimes fate wasn't cruel, just weird. And Pulver, to his great surprise, fit right in. He now had 2 human women arguing over who got to shelter him for the night, all the seawater he could drink, unlimited buffalo wings, a recharged hollow suit to dodge those pesky men in black who occasionally appeared, and an entire neighborhood eager to help him evade them for a laugh. The incident with the jockstrap strapped to a pie and potted plant was priceless, the look on their faces. He shook his head, laughing lightly. Those stupid glowies, they honestly thought it was a bomb, but at least the video got me a bunch of likes. In short, Pulver finally had a place to belong, and he suspected he wasn't leaving Earth anytime soon.